What am I hearing? What is this?
80s film reviews fall across the land. The podcast hour is close at hand. Do they stand up to the test of time? Or as an adult, are they just a crime?
What is this? What is this? It's time to podcast, and something familiar is in your ear. This time on YouTube, you see a sight that almost stops your heart. Start to squeal, but the song takes the sound before you make it. You fill with glee as audio slips between the ears. It's a podcast, 'cause the Rewinders podcast, and no one's gonna know us from 3 years ago. You know Rewinders podcast. You're searching back episodes to see if you ever listened. Hello everybody, this is Joe from the Rewinders. Welcome to a rebooted, restarting, 3 years later version of the Rewinders. I'm here with new hosts. I'm not new, but I'm here with new hosts who will rotate with me on this adventure into keeping up with movies from our past and if they still hold up. Starting to my right will be Ken.
It's a good thing you looked right at me. I'm terrible at directions.
And what's your experience with 80s
movies? So when you're on the Facebook and you see those lists of movies that show up and people are like, you're not an 80s kid unless you've seen all these movies. I'm like, I've seen 3 of these.
You must not be an 80s kid.
I was not an 80s kid. And even if I was an 80s kid, I wasn't allowed to watch a lot of the movies that were out there. So I just never made it back.
Pivoting from Ken is Andy, across the table from me.
Hi.
So what is your experience with, starting with 80s movies?
Oh, man. Well, the interesting thing is I was born in 1988, so I missed most of the 80s. But honestly, I feel like somebody balled up all of 80s pop culture into a cocoon and basically shoved me into it after I was born. So most of the 90s was spent kind of acclimating myself to 80s culture. So 90% of 80s movies I've seen, I'd say. That's ballpark estimate.
And then to Andy's right is Dan.
The young one.
All right, Dan. So how much of 80s movies are you familiar with?
I mean, enough. I spent a lot of time with. It's a pop culture thing. Like, growing up in the 90s, there was just so much, and I feel like I grew up. I was born in '89. I lived through the 90s.
Loser.
My parents. Okay. Yeah, you enjoy your 365 days. People ask me about movies, and I know most of the movies that people are talking about.
In general, though, we're all pretty much enjoy film is a good starting point, I assume here. Except for Ken.
Movies.
What are you doing
hate
here?
Movies.
I enjoy film. I just never made it back. Do you know how many movies they make every year?
Well, that's why we're not doing those.
Oh, man.
And as well, we'll be stretching into 90s movies fairly
thank
quickly
goodness.
as well.
Yay!
So today, all of us are getting together in a reboot of the Rewinders, talking about rebooting what's already been done. We have Ghostbusters. We have
Twice.
It's gonna get better.
I consider Tron
I'm excited
a reboot.
for the new one.
I'm on the fence.
RoboCop reboot.
It was awful.
Hey, no, we're not talking about those things just yet. Total Recall reboot.
I'm into this one.
Star Trek reboot. Star Wars reboot. So there's reboots up the wazoo.
Mm-hmm.
But the
you
one
did
that
there.
didn't happen, that only was floated, was Princess Bride. So we're gonna, even though the Rewinders covered Princess Bride a while ago.
Kiss Steve Brule.
It's not a shutdown for me. We're going to double back on Princess Bride, talk about it, and talk about the idea of rebooting a movie like The Princess Bride. We all watched the trailer. Whoever wants to start first, let's talk about how did that trailer represent the movie?
Oh, it was so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Princess Bride is one of my favorite movies. Easily one of my top 5. I'd never seen the trailer till you posted that link in the Discord. That trailer makes the movie seem just so dark.
It really does. It's a little bit.
It's a lot about killing in that trailer.
Yeah, not what the movie's about at all.
I legitimately can't remember what it played before because my parents VHS'd a lot of things back in the day and taped a lot of things, but I always remember seeing that trailer before some movie that I watched religiously as a child, and I don't know, for some reason the Billy Crystal part at the end always creeped me out.
I could see that, yeah.
I don't know. It was a very dark trailer, though. I will agree with that.
Billy Crystal part. I don't remember what part you're talking
Billy
about.
Crystals.
Just think of Billy Crystal doing something. Yeah. Is that creepy?
Okay. Yes.
Done.
That's it. We've watched the movie. Congratulations. Now we can move on.
I felt that, as it being one of my favorite movies, that the trailer gives away all these important moments. But then if you think about it in the fact of never watching it, there's not enough context in all those moments to understand what's going on. So I felt like it was giving a sweeping view of the movie, but misrepresented the tone of the movie, especially the music choices they made.
As most trailers do.
I feel like this trailer was put out there to be like, hey, check out this cool movie. And they're like, no. And they're like, what, why? And they're like, it's not, no. And they're
I don't know
like,
if
we
I
can
wanna
make
go
it
and
more
see this.
fun. And they're like, okay. And then they made the movie more fun, and that's what saved that movie. I don't know if saved the right word, but...
Well, compared to the novel that it's based off of, I'm pretty sure they did a good job at cutting it down and honing it into the fun parts, because...
Has anyone here read the book? Novel?
No.
I have known of people who have, and I've heard that there's a whole chapter on luggage.
Really?
What?
Yeah, I don't know if that's true or not, but it sounds like they expand on things like way too much sometimes. Anyway, we're not here to reflect on the novel. Let's talk about just a quick summation of the movie. And I'm talking quick, because we've done this before, so we can steamroll this.
All right.
You seem eager. Go for it.
All right. So, douchebag Prince?
Prince Humperdinck.
Yeah, Humperdinck. Douchebag Prince wants to basically... oh, God. How do I put this into words? I was eager to grab the ball. Now I'm fucking it up. But anyways,
Double dribble.
double dribbling, yes. Douchebag Prince wants to start a war. So basically he hires some assholes to kidnap his soon-to-be bride to basically bring her to a land that he wants to have wars with, and have her murdered on land to basically spark and ignite that war. It's kind of backtracks to childhood love coming back to kind of bring her back out of that mess.
Yeah, not bad. It's a good elevator pitch kind of version of it.
Yeah. I assume it's probably not what Rob Reiner brought into a room when he pitched it, but
Yeah. And then that story is wrapped within a grandfather telling his grandson a story in his bedroom. When I was younger, I hated that part of the movie because I didn't care about Fred Savage or Peter Falk or the characters they were playing. I cared about all the characters in the story because they were so good.
I will agree with that. As a kid, I couldn't care less about Fred Savage and Peter Falk, but I just wanted I wanted more, Wesley, and I wanted his adventures and all the fun happening on screen. And yeah, it's not until I kind of grew a little older that I'm like, holy crap, it's Columbo, and got all excited.
Yep. I'm totally the same way. I didn't see the reason to have those two characters, but I also didn't understand film. It was literally just entertainment.
So are we talking about childhood here, or are we talking about those two characters?
You can talk about both.
Good.
Why not?
Because I didn't see this movie in my childhood.
That's
surprise. I did have an opportunity to see this in middle school at a church lock-in, and you spend the whole night in there and they do things, and one of them was watching this movie. I just heard the name Princess Bride and was like, that does not conform to my gender identity, especially at this church. I can't do this. And I refused to listen to people who told me, no, this is a really fun movie, you should watch it. And I'm like, nope, I'm just going to sit here with my Game Boy, play Final Fantasy, whatever it was. As an adult, going back and watching it, the first time I watched through, I also did not care for. those two characters. However, I saw it as a wonderful way to drive the story through. And actually, watching it recently, I liked how that kept time in the movie because you could see where the grandpa was in the book and you knew where you were in the movie. You're like, oh, I'm halfway through. Great. Let's buckle in for some more storytelling.
That's a great point. I didn't think about that.
And it took me a few watches in order to really appreciate those two characters. And yeah.
As being the elderly man of this group. I'd have to say that the Peter Falk character really is more emotionally grabbing as an adult. Now I get it way more than I did earlier because when I was a kid, I wanted that, what Fred Savage's character wanted, the action, the adventure, the sports, fighting, all that stuff. Now as an adult, I'm like, I like the passing it on, the as you wish as I go out the door.
Yeah, for sure. So we have so many movies nowadays that are kind of starting to break the fourth wall and kind of getting into that aspect, but actually having a film that incorporates that as part of the story still, it was charming and really endearing. I really enjoy flipping back and forth between the two.
And speaking of movies that break the fourth wall, Deadpool even took this opening sequence idea and put it into the lower rated version of Deadpool 2, nice. Where he kidnaps Fred Savage and forces him into a bedroom where he tells him the story of Deadpool 2 or something.
No, the first Deadpool, Once Upon a Time in Deadpool?
Yeah, it was like the Christmas version.
Deadpool, something like that. I forget what it is.
Yep. Anyway, I just thought it was funny because, you bring up breaking the fourth wall, and that's the movie today that breaks the fourth wall the most, basically.
Exactly.
So that's kind of fun.
And I will say this, I had two takeaways from that opening scene, which were phenomenal. Mm-hmm. One, I have no recollection of any other movie that starts literally with grandiose title screen, hacking and coughing. And then immediately into a room. That was the best. I absolutely love that. You get on the screen, Princess Bride, and then all of a sudden, before anything else lands, you just hear Fred Savage hacking his lungs out in his bed.
I don't even think like Contagion or any of these movies where people are like putting on suits and trying to save their lives from mass plagues start that way. So yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And then number two, I have probably seen this movie about a dozen times, but I never caught it until now. This is totally a Christmas movie, isn't it? It could be a Christmas movie. In the scenes with Fred Savage, in the very background of his room, out the bedroom window, you can see a string of Christmas lights on the neighbor's house. And he's got all these really horribly crude paper Santas and crap hung up in his room.
Yeah.
I did not notice that. I did notice that
and
it was winter.
A present wrap that his grandfather brings for him.
I didn't even catch that.
Oh, right.
I didn't even catch that, see? It all adds up. It's a Christmas movie.
Holy cow. We
Yippee-ki-yay.
have rebranded. Princess Bride is a Christmas movie. Make way, Die Hard. We have a new Christmas movie.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's all I had to say about the opening. I caught those things and loved them.
Favorite moments?
Oh man, it's the entire movie. I can't. I'm gonna be fawning over
and
this the entire time.
I
It's
understand
awful.
your stance.
Penultimate favorite moment is way towards the end of the movie, so I will wait. I will hold my thoughts.
I am in my 30s now, and I don't care how many times I see that damn scene, but the elderly lady shouting "boo" and Buttercup's retort of just "Why do you do this?" It is the funniest thing to me, and I don't know why.
I used to be scared of that lady.
I used to too. But the response from Buttercup is just so deadpan, and it's not what you expect verbally, so it's just, why do you do this? It's kind of like Monty Python with Black Knight. You make me sad. You make me sad is such a weird response to this situation happening.
I thought you were going to talk about like Hell's Grannies or something like that.
No. But yeah, it just kind of hit that same vein for me. Like, I legitimately was belly laughing when that happened when I was watching it recently. I could not stop laughing at that scene.
I always forget about that scene, and I go through the same steps every time. It's like, wait, is this happening or is this a dream? It's always the same beats, and then Buttercup wakes up, and I'm like, I need to have better memory.
That means the movie's got you.
Yup, it gets me so good.
I think that's why that scene's so magical to me, because every time it plays out, you're like, you forget about it, and the movie lets you forget about it, because it is such a random scene for that film. It's not like the rest of the movie has that style of humor. It's not like the rest of the movie has that specifically. So the fact that that's just interspliced in the middle of the movie, it just comes out of nowhere. So it's easy to forget. And then if you grew up watching like Robin Hood Men in Tights, sometimes I'd blur the lines between that movie and this movie growing up because they both were medieval. They both had princesses and everything else.
Both had Carrie Elways.
Exactly, Carrie Elways. That's the biggest thing. When I grew up, I was convinced that they were the same movie, but yeah.
Are we doing Robin Hood Men in Tights?
We can.
Oh, man.
I believe I've made my opinion on this movie known in
yes.
previous episodes,
Yes.
but I'm willing to do it, yes.
Are they going to reboot it?
Oh, good God.
Are we at the point in our lives where we have to start watching Mel Brooks reboots? I don't want this.
I don't know how they
That's
can.
a scary thing.
Yeah, I don't want this at all.
A special moment in this movie, I think, is one, the rocketing through the introductions, and you don't miss anything. Yeah. They skim over things that are not important, like Buttercup's home. It's not functional. If you look at it as a whole, that home is not functional. There are no parents there. There's no real farm to speak of.
She's wearing very beat up clothes, and then you wonder the next scene that you see her, how
Wait,
the
how
fuck
is
did she
she a
become a
princess?
princess?
Yeah.
Language, sorry.
Florin is a city that exists, but it's basically just a small castle. See, all this stuff doesn't matter, so the movie doesn't show you any of it. It just character, what's happening, move it on, and then it all starts with meeting, air quotes, bad guys.
Now, I mean, if you take a look at what Andrew was saying at the start, where the movie's about him planning on killing her the whole time, it's easier to find somebody who's poor and then turn them into someone you're going to kill.
The sad truth is, to most, it'd be forgettable.
Yeah.
They wouldn't know her. They wouldn't care if she disappeared.
I remember Robin Wright.
Robin Wright's fantastic.
Yeah, as a movie. However, if you're in that world, you would probably not even run into her because she's out in the boonies.
Yeah, she is.
How she met a prince, I don't know. I'm very interested in that story, but I'm kind of happy they skipped over it because they got a lot of other
it
very
doesn't
interesting
matter.
things.
Maybe,
Come on.
maybe it's covered in the book. We'll find out when I get it on.
Oh.
Now, just to piggyback off of that, Joe, I was actually shocked because I realized that I made it to like 20 minutes into the movie, and still I didn't know Wallace Shaw's character's name. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until the prince randomly said that he hired him that I learned his name was Vizzini, but like prior to that, it's not like the characters weren't talking to Vizzini and like bringing his name out just for the sake of letting you know who he was.
They did until the way towards the end did they start using his name.
To be fair, Andre the Giant could have been saying Vizzini's name the whole time.
He could have, yeah.
I have no idea what he was saying pretty much the entire movie.
Oh, bless his heart. I miss him.
He was wonderful, but I could not understand his lines.
Agreed, but same with Inigo, or Inigo. Sorry, Inigo. You didn't know his name until really the Cliffs of Insanity scene too. There's, I mean, unless I'm missing when they call their names out, it feels like the names weren't really shoehorned in just to let you know who the characters were because they focused on the things that they wanted you to focus on, like you were saying.
It's such an organic learning about who they are, such as the sailing scene with all the air quote bad guys.
Yeah.
They start rhyming right away, and they argue with Vizzini about killing somebody, and you learn right away that the only one who has any sort of ill intent is their leader, and the other two are just along because
money.
They got to pay the bills.
Yep.
Exactly.
Would you like a peanut?
You
No
were
more
so
rhyming,
poor,
I mean it.
you couldn't afford a brandy. Is brandy some sort of cheap alcohol?
I guess it can be aristocrat.
Okay.
Now, can I just interject and say that the eel scene terrified the shit out of me
Yes.
as a kid?
Still
Oh my
does.
God.
I developed
teepee.
my understanding of what eels were in the world based on this movie, and it took literally till maybe not even high school for me. I mean, it might have been college age till I learned that that's not what eels really are. Like, they're not monster
bloodthirsty,
teeth.
monstrous.
So many
snakes.
teeth. So many
That
teeth.
travel in
I mean,
an
I admit it.
amorphous
There's
mass.
not many eels where we live. So.
No.
What?
I
I
guess.
mean, there's some down at the aquarium.
There's lampreys, and those kind of take you down the direction of the eels in this movie.
We
so
have
you kind of get it.
6-foot eels.
Yeah, but
Sturgeon.
it's not like we're hopping into
Those
lakes.
are dinosaurs.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's not like we're hopping into lakes though and listening for their songs and seeing if they.
Oh man,
stand
that
up
would be
against the
creepy
movie.
if sturgeons made that sound.
Holy crap, that haunting sound. Yeah.
And then during winter months when people are out ice fishing, you would just hear it echo
Under
even
the
more
ice?
under the ice
Oh
coming
my
out the
God,
holes.
no,
that
no,
would
no.
be
That would be
a horror
terrifying.
movie in the making.
Quick McNotes.
Some sturgeon
Or
horror movie,
quick-
I guess.
quick-
Quick
notes.
McNotes.
Yes.
Trademark.
Yes. There we go.
God.
Good.
The sturgeon
Covered.
song.
We got it. No
That's
one else
fine.
can have it.
Sturgeon Song or Song of the Sturgeon?
Ooh.
Song of the Sturgeon. I feel like
The trailer would have to have someone getting pulled into a hole.
Oh God.
Okay, we gotta get back to the movie.
Back to the movie. We got this. It's fine.
Anyways, so I love the design of that boat too. Like it instantly brought me back. It's like that boat is so weirdly designed, and it didn't match up with any other like Viking ships or like wooden ships I saw as a child. It always stuck out
It's
to
a
me.
toy.
Yeah, that's what.
Yep.
Because Fred Savage's character can't imagine a boat any other way than what something
Oh my
looks like
god,
a
that's
toy.
amazing. That's amazing because there is that scene where Fezzik pushes the boat away when they get to the cliffs of Insanity, and I watched as the ornate head ornament basically like bobbled around. It just looked like a toy duck being pushed away. So that makes sense.
And I just thought of that now. I wasn't like, oh, I knew this all along.
Well,
It's
no. That definitely works. That works because honestly, the whole imagery and the whole feel of the movie as I was watching it, I felt like this isn't actors being serious acting in a movie. This is actors literally looking like they're pulled out of a book and basically acting a book, which is insane to me because it felt like you're watching a book being read, which is exactly the intent.
When I was younger, and I didn't really notice it till literally 3 days ago when I watched the movie, when Wesley's boat is really far away, it's this like big, intimidating monster of a ship. And it gets smaller and smaller and smaller the closer it gets to Vicini and Fezzik and Inigo, and I never like put two and two together till Andy, you said that, and now I'm just like, oh, it all makes sense now.
Seriously, I was fucking laughing my ass off. I was dying watching them climb the cliffs of Insanity for the first time in years watching the movie. Freaking Wesley just powerhousing up that rope
He's
with just
so
his arms.
fast.
And just kicking his legs out.
His legs are just dangling and he's just pulling himself up. That was hysterical to me.
Goes without saying, the sword fight at the top of the cliffs in Insanity
Was on my list of notes.
it's
so good.
One of my favorite sword fights in a movie, even though watching it again, there are parts where it's a little clumsy.
Oh, for sure.
But it's knowing it as a kid and watching it and being so excited about it, and then seeing it again as an adult as being more fun and not as serious as when I saw it as a kid. And I'm seeing your face.
Yeah. I am going to have to remember that this is a child making up a sword fight in his head. So their sword fight just being like every other sword fight in movies where they're just hitting swords. They're not actually trying to kill each other.
But they established that they were almost friends before they started fighting.
And that is fair. However, the point was to the death.
True.
I'd rather destroy a work of art than a swordsman like you.
Yeah.
Or whatever. I mean, I didn't get it perfect.
That's close.
Close enough.
The sword fights in movies generally irritate me.
Yeah.
There's Star Wars where they're like, ooh,
Yeah,
let's
Star
swing
Wars
around
sword fights are terrible.
I still love Star Wars. Don't get me wrong.
Oh,
but
yeah.
See, and I guess this is probably where I have too much knowledge and it ruins things for me. I did watch the behind-the-scenes featurette on the sword fight choreography for the movie. And
How dare you?
I know, and it actually did a damn good job. It looks a little bit floaty, it looks a little bit fun and silly, but at the same time, like they did put a lot of effort into it.
And also, it does fit the jib of the movie.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would want to see a straight-up murder fest. I mean, up until the very end of the movie, but I just noticing that they're attacking each other's swords, not each other's bodies.
The idea was an
that's true.
Errol Flynn style swashbuckle swing from the chandelier.
And that's
kind of
definitely what I
idea.
call
And that's what it was, and that was
It's not
fun.
like heavy hits. It's not like they're trying to kill each other. It's just like, I'm the fanciest, and basically tapping tips.
And let's go back here a little bit.
Yeah.
Humperdinck, this entire start of the movie, expert tracker.
Oh, I was laughing my ass off.
He's like, oh, look, we have this going on here. They were touching swords right there. Somebody went that way. The other one went this way. Let's go this way. That's the way that they were going.
This
Okay,
is actually
great.
going forward, not backwards.
At the end of the movie, Humperdinck loses all of this specialty and he just becomes a bumbling idiot.
Because he always was.
He's kind of the Lord Farquaad of the movie.
He started off so strong, and he lost a lot of ability by the end of the movie.
I think it's because it's a facade that gets broken down.
He just lucked out.
What, seeing footsteps in the sand and understanding that's where people were, and that if you put two and two together, how they shuffle back and forth, that they were having a sword fight?
Yes.
I think that's pretty easy to figure out.
Okay.
And I don't want to dwell too long on the sword fight, but I do want to bring up something that really excited me on this viewing.
The super sharp knife that they used to cut the uber thick rope in like 2 secondes.
What's the point of being a swashbuckling adventurer if you got a dull knife?
I was just very impressed with the sharp knife. I wrote it down.
Should have just used an eel with those teeth.
So Inigo says, I'm going to do them with my left hand because it'll be more satisfying
Sporting.
for him.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And I start paying attention because this is everything that I always think about in this scene is, okay, now he's doing a ruse. He's putting on a trick. He does everything with his right hand in that scene. And his sword is on his left side. So naturally, he's going to pull it out with his right hand. But he's trying to portray that he's left-handed. Throughout all his interactions with the man in black, he's gesturing with his right hand. He takes his sword out with his right hand. He balances it on his right hand. Mm-hmm. But when they go to sword fight, he just casually slips it over to his left hand. He gave it away the whole time. And the man in black, otherwise, is doing poker face the whole time. His sword's on his right hip, pulls it out by left, which is natural. But he's also right-handed and has that game going the whole time and doesn't give it away. So It was something for me, watching it again, that, wow, Inigo really doesn't know how to fool somebody. He's just very straightforward about himself.
Just a super nice, open guy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But also, the man in black didn't actually have any interaction with him up until he was pulling him up from the cliff. So he didn't get all those.
No, he didn't have to understand what Inigo was doing. He just had his own thing going and not giving away any information. But the whole time, Inigo's giving everything away and then trying to fool him.
I do have to throw a note in. This movie ranks at the absolute top of my list of movies that I don't know if there's any other movies even on my list, but this is at the very top. I had to rewind the freaking sword fight scene 3 times because I couldn't believe it. No freaking shing sound as the swords were pulled out of sheaths. And then I followed that the rest of the movie and realized, holy crap, never once do they interject that in. That stupid sound that Hollywood's always thrown in for sword fights is nowhere in this movie.
It's like guns cocking.
Yeah, guns cocking, swords going shing for no reason, steel being pulled against leather going shing. But yeah, that was great.
What do you mean it's really hard leather?
Yeah, I guess. Except for you can see his flopping around as he's rolling around and everything.
Hard leather.
Dan knows all about hard leather.
Hard leather. Hard leather.
Oh, wait, are we getting to the soul-sucking part?
Yeah, if that's where you want to go next.
Oh, we were just talking about hard leather, and I was just reminded of the suction cups on the nipples.
Yes.
That's where the life is sucked out of his body.
I think that was a weird moment for me as a child because, again, with the blurred lines between this and Robin Hood Men in Tights, like, I always saw Cary Elwes as Robin Hood. So then, when I'd watch this movie or when this movie was on, my parents were watching it, it'd always be weird because I'm like, wait, why does Robin Hood have suction cups on his nipples? This is weird black and white for me. I didn't know what was going on, but yeah.
Actually, kind of a difficult scene in such a lighthearted movie. Like,
Yeah.
straight up
Yes.
torture, the screaming and all that.
Yeah.
But it was still not overbearing. It was really well done. Just
Absolutely.
On the nipples was a bit funny to me.
Was it self-censure? Did the producers decide this isn't something we want to have in our movie, so we'll just, he's got to be shirtless?
Oh, they have him shirtless without suction cups.
That's true.
So, rewind it and get a face full of them nips.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
No, I hate to pull things back, but we are skipping literally my favorite scene of this whole movie.
What is it?
Fucking fire swamps. That's my favorite. Holistically, the entire movie is amazing, but that scene specifically is what I come for. I love just the swamp decorations. I love the design. I love him just walking. Like, there's so many unexplained things. Like, obviously, yes, you have the rodents of unusual size and things like that, and you have the random fire pits blasting up. But I feel like there's more life to that swamp than they really give out. And it kind of reminds me of like Peter Jackson-style King Kong, where you don't really all know what's going on the island. You just get a taste of what's there. The scene where Wesley's guiding her through when they first get into the swamp, and they're going past these giant-ass honeycombs. I mean, seriously, the wasps or the bees that made those honeycombs have to have been probably about the size of a freaking dog, so... I mean, there's crazy stuff happening in that swamp that you just don't know about. It just feels alive. It feels like there's crap happening all over the place with the sound that they have spiraling through, and just... I hate that it was cut so short. As a kid, I always hoped that one Wesley said we could go back and live there. I always wish they would, but yeah.
Of course, the Battle of Wits is funny. It's great.
It is.
It's classic.
It's a classic scene.
It's a classic scene. As a kid, I always hated it, though, just because it felt like Vicini was just like on screen for a blip. And his end was just so brief and so sudden. Whereas you have the cool sword fight with, Inigo, and then you also have, the kind of brief fight, I guess, with the rock throwing with Fezzik, but then they're back in, and they're your buddies throughout the rest of the movie, carrying the rest of the film. As a kid, I hated that scene, but as an adult, I appreciate it a little bit more.
I think that Vizzini didn't have the ability to be a buddy in that sort of sense because he was the one paying them, bringing them on board, being a jerk to them.
And as an adult, I get that, but as a kid, it just felt like, boom, done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is this character gone?
Yeah, it was just so sudden and so brief. It was just gone.
I think he had more lines, though, than the other guys did.
He did.
Because
I would
he
agree.
talks a
So
lot.
He does. Yes,
Which is
he
very
does.
much that character, and I love it.
Yes, absolutely.
You killed my father scene. So when Inigo finally catches up with Count Rogan?
Count Ragu.
Rugen.
The spaghetti sauce baron.
Great scene. As a kid, I just thought it was a good fight scene. Then later learning that Mandy Patinkin, wonderful actor, used his father's fight with cancer to connect to that scene. And then watching it as an adult, knowing that he's fighting his father's cancer literally in that scene, gets me waterworks every time.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was going to make that specific note.
God, that scene is so emotional because of that.
So much more different now that I know that.
Yup.
Woof.
Yeah.
I first
Holy crap.
I first read about that a couple of years ago, and watching the scene again as an adult, the whole scene was fun and the whole scene was fanciful, and then you get to that scene where he sticks him, and it just hits. It hits like a freaking... I just... The way he delivers that line, the sweat in his face, the way his face looks, like everything about that line being delivered is phenomenal. You just feel it. You absolutely feel what he's saying. So yeah, knowing that background history, it's intense.
I learned something new today.
There you go.
There you go. Yay.
I will still say that was a fairly emotional scene even without that.
It's good
Now
to know.
you have to go back and watch it again.
Yes. Appreciate it more.
Fine.
Coming from me, where I've been watching this since I don't know how old I was when I started watching this over and over and over again, to hear that lands very well for someone who's watched it, what?
Oh, like 4 times.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And didn't know the background. I mean, that's
Yeah.
impressive.
Well, I didn't know the background until a few years ago either, so...
Yeah, I picked it. It's in one of the commentaries.
The understated performance in this movie is the king, the elderly king.
Yep.
Yes.
That man is
that sounds nice.
hilarious in this movie. If you did not catch all of his moments, you are missing out, and you need to go back and review them because
so aloof.
He is.
it
really
is hilarious, everything that man does.
How is this man a regent of land?
Those are good parts without going over the whole movie, as we almost did, but
Almost.
we held back because
I'm
we
gonna-
could go over the whole movie.
Because my favorite part is Wesley laying in bed
Whoa.
threatening Prince Humperdinck
Hard
with his own my God, it comes round circle. I really need to work on not saying things and having it come bite me in the ass.
Did you just say
That's
it comes
fine.
round circle
Yes.
And bites you
In the ass.
In the ass.
Yes, okay.
with that hard leather?
Okay, go on.
Okay.
Sorry.
The scene where Wesley threatens Prince Humperdinck with the end of his own life being not death, but just endless psychological torture
Oh God, yes.
is...
Leaving his perfect ears.
Yep. That whole scene, if I'm thinking up new characters, I'm looking back at that. This is the kind of hero that I want to have. A hero who will go after the bad guy and give the bad guy what he deserves. It has always been my favorite scene of this movie. Everything else is fantastic, and I love everything about this movie, but that monologue, it just rings to me.
Yeah, that monologue stuck with me as a kid. Watching it as an adult, I got a good hearty chuckle out of it, but what made me laugh even harder, again, just a nice solid belly laugh was, after they tie Humperdinck to the chair and stands up and wobbles over. It's the greatest thing.
I knew he was
That was
bluffing.
so good.
I knew he was laughing the entire time.
That scene has humor. It has intensity. It has the hero winning and no one's dying.
Yeah.
It has a lot of really good points to it, and it's really cool. So since we went over all the good points,
All of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was all the good points.
Our favorites.
Well,
Yes.
probably not all of our favorites, but you know,
One
'cause
last good thing before
Okay,
we get
yeah.
into bads, because I don't want this to get lost.
yeah.
I love the set designs. The set designs are just classic.
Oh,
to
yeah.
me, they just spoke so much to like how movies used to be made.
High
Every
fantasy.
single set was just gushing with detail. And then the English countrysides, everything was just so freaking gorgeous and lush.
Agreed. It was a beautiful movie. Just sets alone were just amazing.
Yeah, I honestly felt watching it that this is probably like my high point, like my watermark about how fantasy movies look. And I don't think I've seen anything come close to looking this good in my opinion, at least. It just was lush and beautiful.
So now that we got that in,
Yes. Sorry.
what did not work in this movie? What took you out of it?
Crystal.
You notice we never listed Billy Crystal as being one of the main good points of this movie.
It was awkward. As a kid, I didn't like the scene, and as an adult, I don't like the scene. But I don't like it less. For me, when it's just Billy Crystal being his Billy Crystal self,
Yeah.
it's awkward as hell. But the second his wife comes into the room and they're playing off of each other, then it evens out. But when it's just Billy Crystal in the room and he's trying to do all the shticks and everything while trying to take care of Wesley, up until his wife comes in, I couldn't get into it. It's like, here's a famous friend! And, you know, you can tell it's Billy Crystal.
It is Rob Reiner's famous friend.
It is Rob Reiner's famous friends, yes. But I don't know. That for me didn't hold up.
I would disagree. I always thought it didn't flow with the rest of the movie, but it was there to get the hero back, because as a kid, Wesley's dead. He's gone. Like, he's not coming back.
He's only
what
mostly
are we doing?
dead.
Mostly dead.
That wasn't brought up right away.
See, it's got nothing to do with Billy Crystal. I love Billy Crystal, and I love movies Billy Crystal's in. I grew up watching tons of his movies. I love him. I don't know why I just don't like him in this movie.
It's
For me,
jarring.
It is jarring. It feels like somebody basically just... I get it. Again, I get it. It's Rob Reiner's friend, but... it feels like somebody would be like, okay, we need an old man for this scene. I don't know, let's just go grab Gilbert Godfrey. He's not doing anything. You can put as much prosthetics on that man as you want, but he's still going to be himself. You're still going to hear that voice come through. So
And that scene
And I would have
is
still had fun with it because
yeah.
I don't know,
that scene is longer than most other scenes in the movie too. So they gave it a little bit more time,
Yeah.
and it felt like improv happening. Like they're all being, as my wife would say, shecky.
I think that describes exactly how I felt. Yeah.
Outside of that scene, anything else?
I mean, the rodents were on.
Hey, shut up.
I know what you're saying.
It was still better than CGI.
That's like my notes, but backwards. I literally wrote that. I'm like, I really don't. I love the ROUSs, and I get it. They, you know, they're not fancy, but good God, at least they're not CGI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is, at the end of the movie, those kissing noises are so loud. I wrote it down at the end of my notes, so it must have been at the end of the movie.
I had a hard time finding a part of the movie that I didn't like. I go into this movie and I'm blind to everything.
I'm squeezing you, Dan. You
He's
have
gonna
to
squeeze
say
me. I
something.
don't know. There wasn't anything that like
Anything.
pulled me.
Bias. Shake it.
I don't know. Like there wasn't a point. Like, okay, fine. Like, I guess out of all the times that I watched this movie, the sword fight scene, I'm pulling little itty bitty tiny hairs.
Yeah.
Seeing either the actors or the stunt doubles land on the ground, and the ground is definitely like a mattress or just a landing pad
I
covered
caught
in
that.
gravel.
I caught that because I saw it go thump and I saw
Yep,
like
you
a
could
little
see
cloud
it. You
kick
could
up.
see it lift off the ground just a little bit.
But it's so charming. And same thing with that gymnastics pole that's clearly just a pole. And that is kind of weird. Why are we excusing that for this movie just because it's The Princess Bride? But any other movie, we'd be like, ha ha ha, look at that fake
But
shit.
it fits into the theme of the movie, which is lighthearted
Literally,
and goofy.
It's
Thank
it's being thought in a child's head.
Yes.
If
Thank
this
you.
was Dark City, we would be all over that.
Oh Jesus!
Another time.
Exactly. Yes. I
But,
think.
like, I don't
Yeah. I'm in the.
I have
boat
a hard
that-
time finding things that I don't like about this movie.
I agree with you, Dan. Everything that I would say would be nitpicky. Overall, it does its job.
It's a story being told.
Suspension of disbelief. They do a really good job with pulling you in by characters, and everything else is okay to come along because it all works. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with this movie, except for Billy Crystal.
I actually enjoy that scene.
And that's, yeah.
Which is unusual because usually the improv type scenes in movies really drive me batty, but
I know Ken can't participate very much in this, but
I'll try.
You can
Get
try.
out of here.
How has this movie changed for you over time? And we've kind of talked about this throughout the way, but how is it different now from when you watched it as a younger you?
Definitely now less of an entertainment aspect. It's not a movie I want to watch to be entertained. It's a movie that I enjoy for the story being told.
Isn't that not entertaining?
Yes, but I didn't when I was younger. I would just watch it because I love all of the high action. Now I enjoy the movie in a deeper level. There's just things that I notice now that I would have totally blown over when I was younger.
I feel like there's less high action in the movie when I watch it now than when I watched it as a kid.
Yep.
Like, I fooled myself into thinking that there was way more action in this movie.
Yeah, no, totally. That's exactly what I felt watching it. I was like, this seems a lot more tame, and it's a good thing. It's a very good thing. And there's just so many more things you can pull out of it because of that.
But even when you say action, it doesn't necessarily mean the sword fights. There's also there's still the tension there when you're going through the fire swamps.
Yes.
There's still tension. It's not necessarily fighting and action, and it's not necessarily in your face, Arnold Schwarzenegger killing everybody action. It's more subdued, moving forward tension, which helps. It keeps you engaged with the movie.
I can appreciate the fact that the movie pushes itself forward so much at all the points. It doesn't often sit on its heels.
Except
It's
for when
usually
they kill
moving
Wesley.
forward.
I mean, when they kill Wesley, it definitely brings the movie down a lot. And then you have to try to
But
move
they don't
forward.
dwell on it for too long.
Not too
they're
long.
Dwell on it just enough.
They
Just
do.
enough.
But I agree with Ken. Like,
It does-
if there was a point where it did feel like it did slog in any way, shape, or form, it did kind of lose traction just briefly. But it
Right.
never really went off the rails. It just kind of, this part's not as fast as that part was.
Yeah.
For me, you got Wesley dying, bring him to those people, which I know I laughed at. I don't remember why, because I don't really remember much of that, except for the fact that there are two old people being angry at each other, which is great.
With the mutton, lettuce, and tomato, where the
and then
mutton
you
is
have-
nice and lean.
You have you got Fezzik and Ingo being layabouts because they don't know what they're doing with their life. Like you got a series of down going on right there, and it's kind of a hard dig out to get onto that wall where they're looking and trying to start making plans, and Wesley still can't move, so you're like, just get moving.
Well, yeah, I completely agree with that because it's so tight-knit in the beginning because everybody's already together or they're just getting together, whereas everybody disbands and, yeah, it's like get the band back together to finish off the movie.
I don't know, you have to do that. It's just, it took a little bit for the movie to feel like it was moving again.
Let's
But
just
once it
blame
got
this
moving,
on Billy
it was amazing.
Crystal. Let's just
Yes.
blame Billy Crystal.
Oh yeah, Billy Crystal. Sorry. What was I
Sucking
talking
the
about?
air out of that room. All right, does the movie still stand up?
Absolutely.
Absolutely,
I'd
this
say-
movie will stand for years. That was
Yeah.
something that I remember making notes of, was that if they were to ever reboot this movie, God forbid that they do, they'd end up falling into the pop culture reference trap. There aren't.
Okay.
There are very few pop culture references from its time.
Yeah, no, I feel like it's completely removed.
Yep.
Like, it's its own thing, and that's what makes it special. That's
The
probably
only-
why so many people love it.
If it had the young boy playing a new console instead of an Atari, change the kid doing
He's got
something in the
He-Man
beginning
behind him.
and
He's got
change- and
Lamborghini
change-
posters. He's
You could leave the Lamborghini posters, change a couple of the other set pieces at the very beginning, and you wouldn't be able to tell what time.
Are
this
you,
was
are you
set
trying
in.
to say, like, he'd be laying in bed on his iPhone and telling his grandpa to fuck off when he comes over?
I mean, it could.
Reed, what's that, man?
Fuck a book?
Throws it out the window.
But yeah, no,
Andre the Giant is the one pop reference of the movie.
Yeah, and I had a shower thought, and the only thing that popped in my head is if a reboot ever did get made, like, the first thing that popped in my head was, they probably put Dave Bautista as Andre the Giant. Like, something along those lines. Like, I just tried to picture, like, what's a popular face right now that's along those lines. I hate the idea that they would even think about rebooting this movie, but, you know.
But if you're going to talk about it, Bautista would not be a terrible choice for
No, he
Fezzik.
wouldn't. I love him. love
I don't
everything
wanna
he's been
see
in
it.
so far, but
The problem is no one is a giant. You have
I mean, yeah,
the
he was
closest
legitimate.
giant we have right now in TV or film is the guy from Iceland, the guy who played in Game of Thrones.
Oh,
He's-
no.
He's huge. He's like probably like 7 foot tall. He's
You're
muscular.
talking about the guy who played the Mountain.
Yes, the mountain.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yes.
I've heard
He's
of that.
And he's not really a giant, like you
But
said.
he's-
Like,
yeah,
I'm,
he's
like
not.
I'm watching this movie, and one of the things that stuck out to me is when Fezzik got his head close to Inigo's. You look at it, it's like, holy shit! If he opened his mouth, it'd almost go over his head.
His
Like,
hand.
gigantic.
They make a
His hands
reference
are
to that
fucking huge, yeah.
in the movie when Inigo's coming out of his drunken stupor. He grabs Fezzik's hand, puts his hand in Andre's hand, and
That's
it's
right,
just
that's right.
that guy's hand
Yeah.
was he could hold my head like a basketball.
I don't think we understood how big he was when we were kids. You put him up next to like 5'7" and 150-pound people. You're like, whoa,
Jesus.
what is going on?
You throw him on a boat with Wallace Shawn, have Wallace Shawn yelling at him. Yeah. Yeah, no, I can't for the life of me imagine them trying to replace that.
You
It just doesn't
just
work.
can't.
No.
You're going to end up with a Gandalf situation where they're going to do forced perspective.
Oh, yeah.
And green screening and stuff like that to make it
God.
happen. It's just won't be the same.
Are you suggesting Peter Jackson as the director for the new one?
No. All right. So let's break our brains and say the reboot has to happen.
No.
Like, what would be an acceptable way to remake The Princess Bride?
Jesus, as I said that, and as that whole thing just popped in my head and how awful the landscape's been in Hollywood for the last couple of years, sadly, the first person to pop in my goddamn head to replace Vizzini, replace Wallace Shawn, would be fucking Kevin Spacey. I don't know why they shoved in there. It's like...
Because they look alike?
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's the
It
lack
just popped
of hair.
in like fucking Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It's just there. It's there. Okay, so if it did have to be remade,
Well, I had seen on the internet, we're going to do Princess Bride. I was like, no, don't do that. And then on the internet one day, I
That was
looking-
like 98% of the people.
yes,
Leave that movie
that was
alone.
me.
You
like
leave it alone.
it's like the same response for Back to the Future.
why?
Every time they bring that up. No,
But-
we're good.
On the Reddit, they were doing a thing.
Bride.
What if they
As a
redid
Muppet
The Princess
movie.
Bride as a Muppet movie? I like that idea.
I know you were excited about this, and I know you guys explained it to me, but I still can't get on board. The Muppets just aren't a thing anymore. They brought back the Muppets for the Muppet movie, and it was phenomenal. The second Muppet movie, everybody lost interest. Now there's nothing, to the point where Disney's even tearing the Muppet attractions out of the parks. I love the Muppets, but it's getting to a point, sadly, in our lives where we're approaching that point where new kids aren't going to give a crap.
Late 80s to
70s.
early 90s, well 70, even 70s, they were more than a staple.
Phenomenon.
So Jason Segel, he really, really, really did magic for the Muppet movie that came out back in whatever it was. That movie was pristine. Everything about it was, you could tell, one of the biggest fans of the Muppets ever, bringing this thing back to the spotlight for everybody to see and understand why he enjoyed it so much, and getting new generations to enjoy it. And then he said, there, I did my part. I got it set for you guys and walked away and didn't do the second one. And they didn't know what the hell to do with it.
awful.
And then it just fell apart. And the magic about the Muppets, hands down, would be the fact that you wouldn't be focused on an actor you dislike playing any of the characters. It's the Muppets. They bring their own magic, their own charm to each individual character. So yeah, that would work.
Would animated work?
No.
Oh, no.
Fuck no.
No. It wouldn't. I mean, it just,
What
it wouldn't.
what if we had Carrie Elways doing the voice of Wesley? What if we had Robin Wright as Buttercup? Shawn Wallace is still out there kicking up stuff. He could do Vizzini.
What the hell is Shawn Wallace kicking up these days?
He was in Marriage Story.
Oh, was he in Marriage?
Yeah.
Holy shit, he was in Marriage Story. I just watched it and I forgot he was even in it.
He had an awesome little side role.
Oh man, now I feel really bad.
I mean, you could just have Fred Savage come back and be Grandpa.
That's doable, but then who would you have as the grandson?
A Muppet.
Well, I mean,
No
if you're doing
name.
the Muppets,
You'd
if
have to
you
do
just,
it.
you just did no name.
Oh no, I like where you're going with this. We could go the whole Jumanji route instead of a book. Instead of a book, because Grandpa comes over with an old SNES or a Genesis game, and he's like, "What the hell's the Princess Bride?" Shoves it in, and starts playing it.
Did you watch the last Jumanji?
No.
I think I think you should before you go and hate on that, because I went into
I
that.
love Jumanji.
No, the
Okay.
one that
Not
you
the
haven't seen.
newest one. The
No.
newest one I haven't seen yet.
I haven't seen the newest one either yet.
Oh, I thought you were asking that.
No, the one
the
before that,
remake
the-
of Jumanji
the
was
remake,
phenomenal. Oh my god, we're getting so off topic talking about remakes. But that Jumanji was phenomenal. I loved it. I walked into it hating it. When I watched the trailer, I hated it.
Yep.
I sat there and I said to my wife, I'm like, this is so fucking stupid. This is such a piece of shit. Look what they've done to Jumanji. Then next thing you know, I actually watched the movie and it was phenomenal.
So reboots can
be good.
Very rarely can
Yes.
they be good.
It's a lot easier to like a movie when you go in expecting to hate it. When you got something that you got to treat with kid gloves because it's The Princess Bride, it's going to be so hard to get anything
there's
positive out of
So
it.
that's a Ghostbusters 2016.
It's a topic for another episode.
Yes.
We've only scratched the surface of reboots here
Yeah.
in our own
Yeah.
reboot. So if we want to keep scratching our reboots, we can continue doing that. Final thoughts on Princess Bride? We all know that we are vehemently against a reboot.
Agreed.
Yes, absolutely.
Even if it's a cute Muppet movie, it probably shouldn't be done.
It'd be a fun fan movie, but I don't know. There was one thing I really caught that I had a good chuckle at, just simply to the fact of the nature of this podcast and us talking about the reboot and talking about going back and everything. Just for the review purpose, it was kind of funny because before the sword fight scene, when Inigo's talking to Wesley, he says, and I quote, "Let me explain. No, there's too much. Let me summarize." I feel like that fits us perfectly right now. It made me feel all warm
like
and fuzzy as it came up. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys want to play a little game quick?
Oh.
What do you think the budget is of this movie?
Five.
Oh.
Five.
It was less than 50 grand.
Grand? Okay. Sorry, giving things away.
I'm gonna go with 11 mil.
I'll go 250,000.
Okay.
75,000.
It was actually about 16 mil.
Whoa!
Wow, count me wrong.
Based off the movie, I felt it was in the teens somewhere.
I don't know money.
Here's the fun thing for the box office. The gross USA profits was $30,857,814, and the cumulative worldwide was about 30,000 above that.
Ooh, the world did not like this movie. Holy cow. Well, this was the rebooted version of the Rewinders covering, once again, The Princess Bride, but with a reboot twist a little bit. Thank you for listening. We'll be back in a few weeks to cover, what if we reboot something else? All right, thank you for listening. Bye.
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 Bye.